you prepare everything the best you can. And when the opportunity comes, you fucking take it. You take it with both hands and you make the most of it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Kyl Reber podcast, where we deep dive into some, I guess you'd say, famous people that some of us may not know. And once we finish this podcast, you may want to get to know them a bit better. This gentleman, I will admit, I don't know him terribly well, but I'm getting to know him a little bit better. But he has played probably quite an integral part in the development of competitive martial arts in Australia. And he's also probably what you'd call a little bit of a pioneer from a business point of view and probably a competitive fighting view himself. And he's also spent his time defending this great land as well. But we will get into it. Damien Brown, welcome.
Thanks for having me, mate. It's good to be here. It's good to have a chat. The other
Good.
side of town, but
Yeah.
but it's good to be here.
Even though Brisbane's can be quite small, it's much easier for us to do it on this way. And Damien and I were having a chat about time management, and this is an exact example of that. So for those who are new to this, we've got 10 questions. Damien got these questions a little while ago. We run through them knowing full well we're going to run off on tangents. And basically, we try and strip it back a little bit. This isn't a podcast about any one topic as much as Damien's life is a lot about martial arts. I'm sure there's other topics that we'll touch on. But question number one, birth to now in 7 minutes, which is never 7 minutes, but let's go, mate. 3, 2, 1, hit us.
I've done it a few times, so let's have a crack. So birth to now, I was born in Albury, New South Wales, but we never tell anyone because I'm a Queenslander.
Yes, of course. Of course.
And you know, my parents, we grew up on a property for a little bit until I had to go to school. So there's a little tiny bit of country in me there,
Mm-hmm.
and I do tend to embrace that a little bit. I like to stay away from the big smoke,
Mm-hmm.
but and then we moved to town in Albury. I grew up in Albury until I was nearly 13. Went to school there. My parents divorced when I was 8, and so I grew up with my dad. That was optional. I still remember the night very clearly. I remember the divorce. I remember everything happening. You know, for those that get divorced in life, think about your children. They will live with that for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And then you know, I lived with my dad till he met his new partner at the time. She had 3 boys, and they wanted to move to Queensland. So Dad went for a holiday and came back and said, "I'm leaving. Do you want to come with me, or do you want to stay with your mum?" And I, of course, went with him. So I moved to Harvey Bay when I
Ooh,
was
okay.
12. Um, it just happened to be that like my grandparents were sort of, well, my grandparents were you know, traveling the country, but they'd settled there for a little bit.
Okay.
They had an old ambulance kitted out, and they just did their trip around Australia a few times, and
So
that's where they were.
what year was this?
1996.
Okay. All right. Because I
Well,
grew up in Maryborough.
yeah, well, it was the end of 96, I guess. So I finished grade 6 in Albury, and then I think I would have went to high school the next year, or I left just a couple of months early,
Okay.
grade 6. Would have went to high school next year in Albury, like New South Wales, grade 7 in high school at the time. Came to Queensland and did grade 7, like obviously in primary
Primary.
school up here. And we were only in Harvey Bay for like maybe 6 to 9 months.
Oh, okay.
Dad bought a 3-acre block in Childers, built a house
Mm-hmm.
on it, and we moved there when I was 13. Um, yeah, I learned to live without my parents. You know, my mum was away. I got 6 weeks at Christmas with her each year,
Mm-hmm.
and a phone call every Sunday afternoon from the telephone booth. So
Okay.
that was life for us. That's what we did, and then my early teens, I was going to school at ISIS High in
Okay.
Childers.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, you know, martial arts was kind of from the age of 6. I did Zendu Kai, so I did that all the way through till 13 when we moved to Harvey Bay, and it didn't exist anymore.
No. Now, who did you do Zendo Kai with in Albury? Was that with the
Uh,
Hamiltons?
Ben Hamilton, yeah, and
Yeah.
Matt, yeah,
Yeah.
under the Hamiltons. And so I did that all through my childhood. And then I did it until basically it wasn't there. And then
Mm.
I played football as well. So I was a
Mm-hmm.
two-sport kid. My dad gave me every opportunity to play any sport I wanted between the
Yep.
age of 6 and 8. I played soccer, played cricket, played AFL, or Oz tag, played rugby. Never played rugby union. Played basketball, did martial arts. I mean, I pretty much did everything. Athletics, little athletics. I did that.
Yep.
And you know, just obviously had the nature that just gravitated towards rugby league,
Mm.
which you know, my dad never played or anything like that. It was just what
No.
I liked.
Yeah.
So I did that in martial arts until obviously we moved to Harvey Bay and there was no Zendukai there. There was one in
Uh,
Maryborough.
there's one in
Uh,
Maryborough. Yeah. That's my
wasn't
instructor.
wasn't really for me at the time. You know,
Mm.
my memory with the risk of being offensive, you know the discipline that was delivered in both were very different. In
Yep.
fact, they were polar opposites. I believe some martial arts instructors tend to punish the group for individuals, you know, mishaps or whatever,
Mm.
scratching your nose, looking around, whatever it is that you do when you're in ranks. Some would discipline you and some would discipline the group. I didn't really like the group discipline kind of idea, and I didn't feel comfortable training as a 13-year-old in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
And so I stopped doing it and kept playing footy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I took up kickboxing again when I was 25, but we'll get to that.
Yep.
And yeah, so I just kept playing rugby, went to school in Childers. When I was 15, it's a crazy, it's a crazy thought because it literally plays no role in your fucking life at all. But Queensland don't have, or at the time didn't have like a year 10 certificate. This is obviously a child's mentality, not a 39-year-old's. But um, I justified moving back to live with my mum because I could do year 10, get a certificate, get a trade, get out of school. And it was just a school thought process. So
Yeah.
for me, I was like, well, I need a certificate of some sort that shows that I went to school and you know, there was no like end of year 10
No.
exams, I guess, in Queensland. And I don't even know if they still exist. It was all about year 12 in Queensland.
Yeah, there was a real push, probably, yeah, post early 90s to get everyone to finish school.
Yeah, so New South Wales still had that, and me being a kid that didn't want to be at school, I went down there, did my grade 10, got my certificate, took my school holidays, made the most of that, and then my mum said, "You're going back to school next week, or you're going to get a job." And the next day, I had an apprenticeship as a baker. So I was
Okay.
16 years old, working 60 hours night shift a week. Um,
So where were you
in Albury by then,
back in
so I'd moved
Albury?
back to Albury when I was 15, did grade 10,
Yep.
wasted my school holidays riding vert ramps on rollerblades and
It all depends on your definition of waste.
yeah, and eating $2 fish and chips. And then when it was the, you know, crunch time, go back to school or get a job, I got a job and essentially that's where my childhood ended and my adult
Mm.
life sort of started with a fortnightly paycheck.
Yep.
Um but yeah, that's my you know, when I was 16, right at the end of grade 10, my stepmother, so my dad's wife that you know we moved to Queensland with,
Mm.
she passed away
Yep.
from a massive heart
Okay.
attack at 33. She was exercising at the time.
Wow.
And you know, it was a crazy time for our family. My dad definitely hit rock bottom.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
by then I'd had three more, well, I should say five more siblings. So my mum had two more girls.
Yep.
My dad had two more girls and a boy. So I have one brother and I have five sisters.
So you're all Brady bunch.
and I'm the oldest of 10 because I've got 3 stepbrothers as well. So I'm the oldest of
Jesus.
10 that were raised.
Mm,
Up to 8 of us living in one household at
that
one
would have
time.
been hectic.
I was the oldest. I got a lot of oldest child privileges, front seats and whatnot. I had a lot of dad was an interstate truck driver.
Okay.
I had a lot of you know, responsibilities. A 3 acre block didn't mow itself. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
while my brothers and sisters were drawing with crayons, I was riding a ride on mower and stuff like that. So, you know, with that, I grew up pretty quickly and
yeah. You had
I
to.
learned to look after my household. So, so yeah, you know, overall, I don't think my childhood had anything that others wouldn't experience to a degree. Um, but really, I'm the result of a good childhood and good values. And despite having separated parents and a stepmother who passed away, I think in general I had a pretty good childhood, and I feel like I'm quite blessed in the opportunities that I was provided in a time that it was probably hard to do so.
You probably learned to be independent at quite an early age too. And you would see from training teenagers these days, that's not always the case.
I'm very independent. Um, I can live with no one,
Mm,
and I can be alone. I'm happy in the presence of
same.
my own existence.
Yeah.
I don't struggle with anything like that. In fact, you know, if I could have a coffee with someone every fortnight, I'd be happy to go home to my own bed and go to work the next day. And and that's not for everyone. People struggle
No,
with that.
100%. And there's
You
a
know,
big difference between loneliness and solitude.
people struggle with being alone.
Mm,
I'm very independent, self sufficient,
yeah.
and I do truly enjoy my own time.
Yeah, same. Let's jump to early adult life. So things got a bit busier, you would say then?
Yeah, look, you know, like I said, I started to trade when I was 16, and you know, I had to learn things the hard way, but I was looked after. So I accidentally got a job. I walked in and applied for a job I thought was an apprentice baker, but it actually turned out to be they wanted like girls to work out in the front shop. But when I turned up, the boss's wife was like, "Oh, he's been talking about getting an apprentice." So he took me out the back and showed me around and said, "Do you want a job?" And I said, "Yes, let's do it." Now I probably didn't cover it, but in my early teens, my dad, while he was driving trucks, wanted to get out of the trucks,
Yeah.
so he opened a bakery, and a family friend helped him
Okay.
build that. That's where I started. He put a manager on, and as a 14-year-old, I was working Friday and Saturday night shifts. So I kind of already baked before and been in and around it.
Mm,
And so it seemed like a very easy job for me to do. And it's probably pretty good for my boss at the time to have someone that was familiar,
yep.
you know, if you're going to put an apprentice on. But I quickly did learn about life in that job.
Yeah.
Um, you know, my boss maybe broke some rules as far as fair work goes.
I think that
Um,
was almost a given in the mid 90s.
I was still getting paid cash in a yellow envelope. Um,
Yep.
and you know, he never put me in TAFE. So I ended up by my third year, I ended up having to do all my TAFE at once.
Wow.
Um, there was a lot of things that, you know, probably weren't right, but you know, I got through it. He had a he had a son that was struggling with life as well. You know, I had not a knife held to my throat in the middle of the night. Like I'm 16 years old, working with one guy that's 25, and one minute he's joking with you, and the next minute he's holding a knife. So it's just like, you know, I experienced a lot of things as a
Mm,
16, 17-year-old that others probably wouldn't experience. You know, you have jokes on a work site and whatnot, but typically, you're probably not going to be faced with
no.
that kind of violence in a general workplace. And anyway, I changed jobs when I was 18 and finished my trade off at Baker's Delight, and then I took a opportunity to move to the coast up at Merimbula, Tathra area.
Mm-hmm.
I was young, 20 years old, finished my apprenticeship, single. It was like 2005, I think. Took a job on 55 grand a year. It's pretty good money back then. And superannuation on top, working in a Swiss bakehouse. I went up there, I played footy on my weekends, trained during the week, I slept and worked, and that was it. And I go
Life is
home every
good.
3 or 4 weeks and visit my family and
Mm.
a few friends. And that was a good time in my life. But I moved back to Queensland. I always wanted to come back to Queensland. I moved back to Queensland about 6, 8 months into that, and I got a role with Baker's Delight head office.
Okay.
I was doing a traineeship, kind of like a small business franchising certificate.
Yeah.
And then part of that, they put you in a business to manage it and whatnot. And so I was working at the Indooroopilly and Kenmore Baker's Delight.
Okay.
And I was living in Beachmere.
Okay. That's
It
a
was fucking
decent hike.
it was a wild drive to work, few speeding tickets, but it was a wild drive to work in the middle of the night. But yeah, it was a good time. Um, you know, I'm a trade baker and I loved my job. It's an industry that I was passionate about.
Mm.
Sounds kind of crazy because people think you're just making bread, but there's a lot of competitions and stuff for people that do that, like there is for pastry chefs. And if you're passionate about it and you're good about it, you can really appreciate the art in it. And
Do you just go to a random bakery every now and then and pick up a pie and go, my God, I can't believe they actually sell this shit. Like this is
I do, but here's one for you. Have you ever looked at a loaf of bread and looked at the lines in it and noticed how crooked they are?
oh, like is that a thing?
It is a thing. So your bread is 4 pieces. All right,
Mm.
comes out one roll, cut it
Yeah.
into three. So cut 3 cuts, cut it into 4 pieces. You turn it sideways. The objective of a loaf of bread is to get it as square as possible, right,
Oh.
with a golden crust. But you have to get the 3 lines in the top of it have to be straight. Most people don't have them straight; they're on an angle. Um. Anyway, so there is actually an art to it, and if you were competing in bread, bakery events,
Yeah.
there's a lot that goes into it. But I really enjoyed the job. I enjoyed the industry, but you tend to work, the more night shifts you hit, the more you find out you're working with people that probably aren't really night shift people. And
Yeah.
and I was looking at buying Lutwich Baker's Delight actually back in
Okay.
the day in the shopping centre there, and I was going to lease to buy. And I was pretty close to doing it, and then I was working a night shift, and I had a guy come in. He was late to work. It was a shitty industry. People tend to just sleep in, and then when you ring them up, you're like, "Hey, man, you coming to work?" They're like, "I quit."
Yeah.
And if you look in the paper every weekend, there's 3 or 4 jobs for bakers.
Well,
Like it's one
the
of those industries where you can always find work because people are always screaming for it.
the hours aren't
Um,
exactly favorable, are they?
no, they're not. I like night shift. I used to really enjoy it. I like working, you know.
Mm. Mm.
Prior to moving and all that, when I was doing my apprenticeship, I would work 1 a.m. to 9 a.m. or
Jesus.
3 a.m. to 11 a.m. And then I would go from there to work for my uncle, um, operating like a mini excavator or a
Mm.
bobcat. We're just doing some labouring work, and I'd work till 5 p.m. My mum used to drive the food van. So she'd pick my clothes up. Again, young and single, had my own place, but
Mm.
mum would come to my second job, pick my clothes up from my first job and give me lunch. And she'd go home and clean them. And when I finished work, I'd ride my bike to mum's house, pick up my clean clothes and have dinner, and then ride to my house and go back to bed. And that was my life for like a year or two.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
all. I worked 2 jobs and I didn't party. I don't remember ever going out for anything except my 18th and my 21st.
It just didn't
Um,
interest you.
Not really. I just worked. It was just who
Mm.
I don't know. I don't really know. Like, I mean, my dad worked hard, but like, I guess when you're 13 years old and your values are based around looking after a family and um, mowing lawns and cleaning outside and taking the bins out and
And I
doing
think
all
it,
the
yeah.
responsible stuff. I think that just becomes part of your life. And
And it's if that's all you see from the top as well. So if you see your dad working all the time and everyone else working around you, you sort of go, well, this is just what you do.
yeah, I think so. I mean, that's all I can really put it down to. Dad was always working. That's what you do. Why is
Yeah.
dad working? Well, we got to pay the bills. We got to
Mm.
look after the family. We've got 8 kids. They got to eat.
Mm.
They all want to play
God.
footy. So it's like there's always, that's just that's just what you learn. You learn
Mm.
by monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah, of course.
And that's the same values you grow up with. So yeah, so basically I was working this night shift and this guy come in and he'd taken a lot of drugs and a lot of bad drugs, and he was bragging about the tracks in his arms and all this sort of shit. And I was like, fuck this. This is not what I want to do. And it literally was that shift. It just changed everything for me. I went home on a Saturday. I opened a double spread on a newspaper. Fucking the army wants you. And I was like, yes, it does. Let's do that. And I
What
don't
year
know
is this?
why. I was 20 I was 21 when I joined, I think.
Okay.
Maybe 22, 22. I think I was 22 when I joined. Um, and yeah, I was 22.
So in military
Um,
terms, you are just the right. You are young, impressionable. Let's go.
um, yeah, and so it was kind of an odd experience, really, compared to some of my mates and the other people that had joined. But I think I inquired like in June, and I was I was in Kapuka in July. No, I was in. I must have inquired in July, and I was in Kapuka in August.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was a crazy time. 21st of August, 2006. Um, Bus turned up, and away we went. But I just that's exactly what it was. I had a terrible night at work. I was like, I don't want to deal with this. I was 21. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit scared of business.
Hmm.
Without diving into it too much, when my because it's not really my story, it's my dad's, but when my stepmother passed away, my dad also went bankrupt because he was being ripped off by a guy that was managing his bakery while he was driving a truck that he owned. So he owned a semi trailer as well, and he was towing
Mm.
someone else's trailers. That guy wouldn't pay his bills, so he had a lot of outstanding bills and maintenance stuff for his truck because the guy he's towing trailers for wasn't paying him, and then he had a manager that was fleecing him, that was actually
Yeah.
um, making product in his bakery for his two bakeries in Bundaberg and shipping it across. So there
Sounds
was
like
a
a
whole
top
bunch
bloke.
of there was a whole bunch of stuff going on there that and then he lost his wife, and you know sometimes it's easier to throw your hands in the air. So
Oh, totally.
that's what he did, and so I was old enough to experience that and to understand that, see it for what it was, and I guess
Mm.
yeah, I'd be lying if I wasn't if I didn't say I was fucking scared of business, scared of
Oh,
risk
when you
at
see
that
something at
time.
its worst, yeah, you fear it.
So yeah, that's how I got out of that industry, and that's how I landed in the military in August 2006. And and then we went through the training. So we did Kapuka, uh, 11 weeks Kapuka, 10 weeks Singleton infantry training. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be an infantry soldier because Google said so. Because shooting shit sounded fun to me at 21 years old. Um, and yeah, basically they were like, "What do you want to do?" I went through the army website. I read all the shit that sounded cool, and the bigger the bang, the better. So I just chose infantry. Um, and whoever wrote that one liner or that paragraph um, was very good at wording, regardless of season, weather, or terrain. But yeah, it was that's how I got in basically, and I went and did Kapuka, and I got lucky. I would say I got lucky. Um, I landed in a time that was high tempo, so
Mm.
lots of deployments,
Mm.
lots of turnover of soldiers, so people getting out. Retention
Yep.
was terrible, probably still is. It's got no better. But it was a time when you know, uh, they were doing half of the training at Singleton. So they do all the classroom stuff and range stuff. And then they needed soldiers in Townsville. So they sent our entire platoon to Townsville and we did the rest of our training. So all the field exercises and the end of course exercise, we did all of that out of 1RR in Townsville. And then basically they said to us, whoever your section commander is where you're going. So we didn't really have a choice on postings. We were given a choice because I think probably got to give you a choice.
Mm.
But no one really got it. And it was based on, needs and
Yeah.
tempo. So the guys that went to 1RR had 1RR section commanders from the start of our course. They sent them down to Singo and we had two. And the 1RR guys deployed to East Timor like 2 weeks after getting off course. So we finished
Mm.
our course in March, and I think in April they were in East Timor.
Mm.
I went to 2RR and landed in Charlie Company, and we got told that we were going to Afghanistan on 28th of September. So
Okay.
I got there, and 6 months later, I was in Afghanistan. Doing my thing at 20, 23 years old. Yeah, it
How
was a
long were you
crazy.
there for?
I think we probably did about 6.5 months in country.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we had, well, as in from the time we landed over there to the time we left. Um, I'll do it again. I'll do it tomorrow.
Yep.
It's fucking not for everyone, but I'll do it. I'll do it again.
So go back a little bit. You've done, you've done a fair bit of martial arts. You've done the rugby. You have, a mentality of a fighter. You've been a fighter. Post this, was this something that like other people would do it, and a few weeks in they go, this is fucked. Were you just like, this is me? This is so much fucking fun.
Um,
Or was it a mixture of the two?
I would say everything about being an infantry soldier was me,
Mm.
except doing fuck all.
Yep.
So the funny thing is, everyone says hurry up and wait. And there's always something to do, but it's never time to do it, kind of thing.
Yep.
I struggled. I remember ringing my dad and saying to him, "I need to get out of the army because I am fucking bored."
Mm.
And I think that was that working mentality that I had
Mm.
prior to it. If you took a kid out of school, he'd love the army. But when the job's on, the job's on. You know what I mean? Yeah, it is busy. If you're overseas, it's busy. But you know, it's not. It's it's only busy like as in there's always something on. You're always away from your family, but you're always away
Yeah.
from your family doing fuck all.
Mm.
Like it's actually the army actually has no idea what life balance is like.
No.
Like the amount of times I sat on the army base until 4:30 p.m. doing nothing after one
Mm.
o'clock. It's crazy. They actually had no reason for me to be there. They could have literally. You spend 8 or 9 months of the year as a grunt away from your family. I mean, for the few months you're home, fuck, send soldiers home at lunchtime.
Yep.
Like, yeah, sure, we're probably meant to be doing fire and moving drills on the oval, but we weren't. No one made us go and do it.
Mm.
We're just there following whoever's above us.
Mm.
Um, but it's like once you've they could really compress your days. Like on base, if you've worked out that day, you know, you've done some drills, maybe you've done a couple of nav exercises or drills or something like that. You've done some infantry specific training. Like why are you even there?
Yeah.
Send them home. You know what I mean? Send them home. Tell them to have their phone on them. I just didn't really so I met my partner, my now wife, still 17 years on, beautiful lady. She's put up
Mm.
with some shit, hey. Um,
That's what they do.
so I met her in April, just after I got to my battalion, and
Okay.
at the start, I think we didn't see each other much. It was okay, but it was more like after my deployment, like 12 months later. Because prior to that, it was sort of like I'm going away in 6 months. And she
Yeah,
was like, "Oh yeah, cool." And then we just knew, like when we met, that was just
that
what it
was going to
was.
happen.
It was more once we moved in together, um, and you'd be sitting there and you're like, "Fuck, am I sitting here doing nothing?"
Mm.
I haven't seen my partner for 3 weeks, and
Mm.
I'm in back in here on a Monday, sitting down at 10 a.m. waiting for 4:30, and I think that stuff I really struggle with.
That got to you.
Um, and I feel like they're the kind of things that could make people really appreciate their job. Right. I think
And
the
that's,
army's got it twisted. The army thinks that your rental assistance and your fucking free medical and dental is what makes people appreciate their job. Like, I mean, you probably see a doctor once a year, in your 20s, if
yeah,
that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
no one in their 20s goes to a dentist, right? No one gives a fuck about that,
No,
right?
you
The
don't
rental
go until there's
assistance,
something wrong.
yeah, the rental assistance, maybe. But then, people go and find a job on 80K a year and it doesn't matter. So,
Mm.
look, I just think all those things they think are worth it are not. I think if they tended to look after the soldiers while they were on base, they get more out of them off base.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just I struggle with that bit, but I definitely, when it came to the hard ass stuff, trying to pack on and walking 15Ks, like fuck, there's no quitting me, man.
Mm.
That was that kind of stuff.
That was your
That
jam.
was that was me.
Mm.
Um, carrying an 80 kilo stretcher, like that was me. My mate's fucking struggling carrying his pack too. That was me. Like
Mm.
I love that stuff. And so everything about the job, except for the wasted time, was me. I dug it. I couldn't wait for pack march Fridays. Like I couldn't wait to be hurting with my mates. I couldn't wait to be walking like bloody 300 Ks over a few weeks out bush for no reason. Like
So you
I
probably ran
really enjoyed that
towards
stuff.
a lot of the stuff others run away from.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. It
Did you
definitely,
just do the one? Did you just do the one deployment?
yeah. So I did one deployment. I got back. I actually tore the ligaments in my ankle while I was over there. I came back and had ankle surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was rehabbing, they went back to Timor. And then after that, I did a fitness leaders course, and then I went and did my PDI course, and I transferred to be a PT instructor.
Mm-hmm.
That's what brought me to Brisbane. I got posted to Brisbane.
Okay.
Prior to getting posted to Brisbane, I actually started after my deployment. I put a bunch of weight on, got really depressed from the surgery,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that's where I went. So sort of links up with now, but Ian Bone, for those that don't know, Courage Training Center in Townsville, former soldier. He was one of the 2RR section commanders on my course. He was
Mm-hmm.
one of my first two military instructors. Um, he was also fighting and discharged while I was in Afghanistan. When I needed someone, when I needed to reach out to someone to help me, you know, I played sport my whole life. I ate fucking McDonald's 3 times a day. It didn't really matter. All of a sudden, I was sitting on the couch with a moon boot on, putting weight on. Um,
And
you know,
as you
I'm,
just
I'm
said 5 minutes ago, you hate fucking sitting around.
yeah,
Now you're sitting around all
yeah,
day. It would have
and
done your
and
head in.
and I was putting weight on, and anyway, I went back to work after a few months, and I knew that I just needed to shed a few kilos. I didn't know how. I'd never had to worry about it. So anyway, I reached out to him. I started kickboxing. Um, hit him up for a plan. Pulled a sheet of paper out of the printer. Wrote down 3 meals and a couple of snacks and said, "Come back and see me in 4 weeks." And I came back about 7 kilos lighter.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gave me a good plan, and we started training, and that's where I got back into MMA and kickboxing. So I started kickboxing at 25. I started jiu-jitsu at 26,
Yep.
and I had one MMA fight against Ryan Dunstan,
Mm-hmm.
who was a brown belt. Took the fight on 6 days' notice. No weigh-in. Weighed in the day of the fight apparently, and came down and you know, I'll still tell him to this day that I was getting the better of the striking, but that motherfucker pulled guard on me and hit me with a flower sweep and then umpired me from mount. I had no idea what jiu-jitsu really was. I think
The fuck is this?
I was about 6 weeks into doing jiu-jitsu and I'd had a couple of kickboxing fights. So, you know, yeah, it's a funny story. We have a bit of a joke every now and then, but he's a good guy and I like dealing with him and working with him. So it's that's where it all started for me, and that was the addiction to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And then I had one more fight, again, short notice. Mr. Paul Demicoli, he had
Mm-hmm.
Fate MMA back in the day. I fought on that show on a couple of weeks' notice against a guy from Integrated, and I won that. And then I went on my PT course, came back, got posted to Brisbane. When I got posted to Brisbane, I hit up Ian and said, like, you know, where should I train? And he was like, well, if you want to train anywhere and you want to get anything out of MMA, you got to go to Integrated. I was like, all right, cool. So fucking, I walked in there. I got the shit fucking beaten out of me, man, for like 6 months straight. Like, I'm not sugarcoating it. I'm not going to hide it, man. They fucking beat me up,
No,
and
I've known Adrian for a number of years, and
you know what,
he's a
man.
hard man.
You know what? It's again, it's not for everyone. If it
No.
was, everyone would do it. It'd be easy. It's not for everyone. They were the best gym in the country for a reason at the time. The champions list is long. They had great coaching staff: Steve Compton, Dan Higgins, Adrian. Obviously, owned the gym. They had good fighters. And you know, I I probably didn't go there. I probably was like the fucking most unlikely person to go there that should have went there really.
Mm.
So only 6 months earlier, I won against one of their guys in a pro fight. Then I got posted. I went to a Friday night wrestling class, loved it. Hadn't done straight wrestling before. Mandy Stewart fucked me up. She's like 50-kilo female. And I was like, all right, cool. And I remember I walked down the stairs out the front. Adrian was in an ice bath and Dan was there. Adrian was fighting on Legend FC a week later. I said, have you got a sec? And I said to Dan, like, I'm fighting in 10 weeks on Nitro MMA. I'd organize my own fights.
Mm-hmm.
Can I train for that fight here? And he said, see you at 5:30 on Monday. 5:30 is the pro fight teams class.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it started. You know, we look back now and we go, there's a better way to train, but back then that was the way you trained.
That was all we knew.
And if you didn't train like that and you didn't want to train like that, then just don't train.
Yeah.
You know, I went through the fire. I fucking thank God I came out the other side. I can still talk. That's a good thing. And you know, eventually all of those people, including myself, have gone our own ways. But man, you can't discredit the past. You can't forget history. You know,
No.
the future might be different, but there was a time in my life when I needed that gym and I needed the people that were in it. And you know, they came into my life for a reason and they still coach me to this day, talk to me at least, even if we don't train together. And I would never take that for granted. So
No.
that was
And I think
2011, and that's where it started for me in Brisbane, and I've been here ever since.
we forget and I mean from someone who, like, when I started jiu-jitsu in Brisbane, there was one black belt in Queensland and he was Brazilian. And I think the guys now, or the kids now, like I'm 50 next year, they forget about this. You know, it was well, not lawless, but you know, we just did what we thought was right. And if you trained till you were exhausted every night, and that was okay. That was because that's all we knew.
Yeah, and you know, man, you shut the fuck up, or someone's going to kick you in the liver. So it's
Yeah.
like, it was just, you know, you turn up on Mondays for jiu-jitsu and you finish in jiu-jitsu with gloves on. You know, you turn up Tuesday for shoot boxing and you've fucking breathed the wrong way, so someone's ground and pounding you. And like on Wednesday, that's meant to be just no-gi, turns into sparring rounds. It is what it is. That's just what we did. We just did MMA and we just fought in the gym. And you know, you fight in the gym, and if you make it to a fight, then you're well and truly prepared. And that kind of style of training. I would say it's not the athlete style. It's definitely a fighter style of
It's a
training.
fighter style.
And it's if it did nothing else, you were physically and mentally fucking on point. Like by
There
the
was
time you get to a
no,
fight, I remember the last thing Adrian used to say to me, no one will do what I did to you in the gym. Go out there and fight your fight. And I was like, fucking every time it was said to me, I'd go, fuck yeah. It's like, no one's going to do what's just been done to me in the gym. And I went 6-0 in my first 6 pro fights. And I felt invincible. I fought at lightweight. I fought at welterweight. Um, got a little rocky after that, but it definitely had its place, and it certainly had an important part in shaping who I am today. And
oh, look, that's probably still having a flow on effect, isn't it?
sometimes it has a negative effect. I just feel like beating the shit out of these kids.
Well, yeah, it's hard to break our old ways.
But
You can't
I
do that
guess
anymore.
that's the difference between um, you know, understanding business and understanding, fighting, and then
That's
trying to
it.
find a middle ground
That's
where,
100%.
where
So,
your athlete, it's I think what's important is that we don't walk the same path, but we use the path behind us as, a way to find a better track in the future.
100%. So to sort of round, well, I mean, we've got two parts probably left to go in your life as such. Number one, I guess for a lot of those kids out there, you got to live the dream. You were contracted by the UFC.
Yeah. Hey, like, I could spend a fair amount of time talking about this because, now that I promote fights and I coach, I'm quite passionate about it. But, you know,
And you run a tight ship. I will give you that. Your fight shows you run a tight ship. It's
well,
good.
thanks, mate. Making the UFC is about, is preparation meeting opportunity. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's a good
Who
way
you
to put it.
fight for, who manages you, none of that shit matters. Right. I didn't have a manager. Preparation met opportunity. You be ready, you win fights. Your win loss ratio is 70, 75% wins. You know, you prepare everything the best you can. And when the opportunity comes, you fucking take it. You take it with both hands and you make the most of it. And that's really all that happened for me. Again, I didn't have a manager. The UFC reached out to Justin Lawrence looking for Nick Patterson. Nick Patterson, for those that don't know, the diabetic. He was a very good fighter in Australia. He struggled to make lightweight due to his medical stuff, from what I can believe, or what I believe. And he was fighting at welterweight, and he'd actually retired. And they reached out looking for a lightweight, and um, yeah, Justin, could have easily just said, "Sorry guys, Nick's not available." He told me he can't make weight anymore, so Nick said no to it.
Mm.
But instead, I was on a 5-fight win streak. I won 3 Australian titles. I just fought 2 weeks earlier, and I was working at the jail, which I did for 8 years.
Mm.
And my wife never rings me at work. Like, I'd been there for 3 or 4 years at the time, and she'd never rang me at work. And obviously, there's no phones out there or anything, so you have to ring, the control center. Um, and I get this call over the radio to me saying that I got an outside call. I thought, that's weird. Like, I never get an outside call. So she rang up. She said, "You need to call Justin Lawrence. He's looking for you. Something to do with the UFC." I said, "All right, cool." So I rang him back and he said, "Hey mate, can you make 70 kilos on Saturday?"
Yeah.
I said, "What kind of fucking question's that?" And he was like, "That's what I thought." He said, "I've already told Joe Silva you'll take the fight. I'm just waiting for a contract." And that is how I got my contract. That is how the UFC came about. Um, is opportunity, right? Alex
Mm.
Volkanovski's on like a fucking 15 fight win streak at the time. He should have signed with the UFC before me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That should have been his opportunity. But I was in the right place at the right time, with the right win streak, with no manager. I fought twice on XFC, once on Brace, twice on brace, once in New Zealand, and I just come off 3 consecutive losses on Cage Warriors.
Yep.
Right. No one gave a shit where I was fighting. No one cared who my manager was. Just win fights, put yourself in the best position possible. And when the UFC comes knocking, you take that opportunity and you run with it. Now, you know, obviously if you have a manager that has better contacts, that helps, you know. But I think there's too much emphasis put on everything outside of winning fights.
Yeah.
Just win fights, you know, win fights, be active. And I think it's as simple as that, man. And again, you know, a manager, you know, potentially can make a difference. I don't think they are the difference. That's
They
what I'm
can't help you
saying.
win the fights. Like you just said, you know,
No,
you're the product.
and I think a lot of managers have a lot of athletes. You know, like me personally, I've been managed by. After that, I was managed by someone in America, and I got fucking screwed. Um, you know, I think Australian managers or managers from your own country are the answer. I think you can't replace someone who is invested in you. And I certainly wouldn't be managed by anyone that had more than 3 or 4 of my weight class on their roster.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, but it's a big web, right? You don't know which way is the right way, and you don't know what to do and what not to do. And you know, at the end of the day, you can do one thing and not make it, and then you can do another thing and make it, and someone else will do something different, or they'll do the same thing as you and they'll make it, and you'll be like, why didn't I make it? And you know, I really think like there's such a small percentage of people that get to sign with the UFC that you just need to be winning fights and be active and hope that the opportunity comes your way. And there's a little tiny bit of strategy in there, you know, like
Yeah.
let's say the UFC is coming to Perth for 305 in August.
Yeah.
If I was an athlete right now, I'd be looking to fight on the Eternal card the night before. Not so as I can fight on Eternal, but so I can be in camp getting ready for a fight that's on the same weekend.
Yeah.
Right. If there was a fight, say there was an event the week after, you know, or 3 weeks after, I'd be looking to get matched up on that. Not 3 weeks before, because if you fucking lose that fight, that's not going to help you.
No one cares.
But you know, 3-4 weeks after that, anything that protects the win streak that you have now, but puts you in camp so you can be prepared best as possible, that's what you want.
Yeah.
And then when it gets within 2 weeks, they can't get a visa done for someone overseas. So, you know, my basic math would tell me they're going to look internally, which is what they did for us. And that's when you need to take the opportunity. They're going to look for the best guy in Australia at that weight class at that time.
Do you have this philosophy with your fighters then that you're, I guess, always ready, or your baseline is always high?
Look, I don't have a lot of fighters. I mean, I've got a few, but I've only got a few pros. You know, my thought is that if you are in camp, you should be training 10 hours a week. And if you're out of camp, you should be training 5.
Okay.
At a minimum. You should do your own conditioning, 5 hours of martial arts. So you should be doing, you know, jiu-jitsu and striking 3 times a week each kind of thing. You're doing 5 to 6 hours a week. You spend time with your family. And then when you're in camp, if you've got 8 weeks notice, you should be doing 2 hours a night, 2 hours on the weekend. Outside of that, you should be getting road work in or lifting weights or whatever it is you choose to do for your conditioning.
Yeah.
And I don't think as a professional fighter that is excessive or anything over the top. If you're not training 12 hours a week as a professional fighter, then you are doing yourself a disservice.
And I think a lot of, without again getting off track, because we still got a few questions to get through, a lot of kids aren't prepared for how much volume is actually involved in being even remotely ready or having that baseline.
Yeah, look, and the other thing is I don't ask guys to fight.
No.
Right? I think a lot of guys, particularly members, they look up to their coaches or whatever, they respect their coaches, they don't want to say no to their coach, they don't want to disappoint their coach. So I never ask. I don't want any of my guys to be like, yes, I'll fight, and then just go, fuck, what did I say that to him for? You know? So everyone in my gym knows if you want to fight, you come to me. I'm not coming to you and going, hey, man, your striking looks really good. You know what we should do? We should have a kickboxing fight because you might shit the bed and get hurt, and that's my responsibility. So I don't go to anyone and ask him to fight. I might say to them, hey, man, you look good. Do you have fight aspirations? But I won't be like, hey, man, I think you should fight. That's not my job. That's not my position. It's, maybe they're just doing it for martial arts and they might just be one of the best teammates you've ever had. I had some great teammates that never had fights that helped me get ready for UFC fights.
It's just not on their radar.
So I don't approach guys. I leave it up to them. It's their responsibility. They get to make that decision. But yeah, it's I just leave it up to them.
So let's fast forward a little bit. So the UFC came, and how many fights did you have with them?
6 fights in the UFC. I lost my debut, which still filthy at Greg, by the way, the referee. I think he should have taken a point off old mate.
Was that at Entertainment Center?
Yeah, I think he gave him about 7 warnings for grabbing the cage.
Yeah,
including
that was on the fight night. I think Mark Hunt was the headline.
That's correct.
Yeah, we were there.
He hit I had his back in the third. He was gassed as, and I felt good. Like, I'll be honest, I was fucking tired. Like I just cut 13 kilos in 6 days, and don't recommend it. Wasn't ideal, but hey, you got to take your opportunities. And I did that. I made weight. I knew I've got a good gas tank. I know that I can redline and I can keep going. I'm a 3-round fighter, or a distance based fighter. And in the 3rd round, when I had his back, he grabbed the cage and he hit a switch. And I got a photo of the photographer, got the perfect photo. He fully launched himself off the cage to hit the switch. And if he didn't grab it, he wouldn't have got it. Anyway, I lost the decision in that fight. And then I went on to win my next 2, including the fight in Atlanta. So I fought on the Robbie Lawler, Tyron Woodley undercard. Got a knockout first round. And then I fought John Tuck in Melbourne. Again, same thing. Good fight, good opportunity. He broke my nose and my left eye socket in the first, or my orbital wall in the first round. So right towards the end of the round, probably, I don't know, like 45, 60 seconds to go in the round. Hit me with a right hand as I stepped up for a knee, and completely shattered my nose, like fucked it, like split. There was like an L-shaped cut across it. I remember looking at the canvas when I was on the mat. So he had 9 wins, 6 submissions, 6 rear naked chokes. And I remember he had my back, and I was looking at the mat, and the blood was that thick on the mat, it wasn't soaking in.
Yeah,
I knew that it was bad, but it's just a nose, man. It's below the eyes. I can still see. We're good to go. So anyway, he broke the left orbital walls, and then in the second round and the third round, I won. Well, on 2 of the judges' scorecards, anyway. I really just had the points fight. I couldn't get amongst the fire, and I was in a fucking shit ton of pain. In the second round, I snapped the tendons in my hand. So off the pointer finger, I snapped the tendon and it was balled up in my wrist. I thought I broke my hand again, which I did a couple years earlier. And I remember saying to my corner at the end of the second round, I broke my hand again. And then Adrian said to me, he's like, just hammer fist. You just pack him. And he's like, just tell me to throw my fists like over the top. You know what I mean? Anyway, and then I went out there in the third round, and I was doing my thing and circling and striking from the outside, and he fucking popped me with a left hook, and he broke my right orbital wall. And I remember thinking, like, I broke my eye socket because everything went blurry, so I couldn't see anything at all, really. And it was instant. It was like on impact, boom, blurred vision. And I was like, fuck, that's like a telltale symptom of a broken eye socket is blurred vision. Anyway, we got through it. I won a split decision. Fucking, I don't know if we had this fight today and it played out exactly the same, I'd probably lose, but I didn't. It's on my record.
Yeah.
And, me and John have talked and worked together since, and I've flown some of these fighters out here, and
yeah, good.
we seen each other in Rising once, and was getting my hands wrapped. I said, "Hey, John, can you pass me my glove from the other end of that table?" And he picked up my glove and he passed it to me. And he said, "It's a good thing I'm not throwing them at you, hey." And it's funny. He's a good guy. He's super humble and nice. But yeah, that was my second win in the UFC, and then I got knocked out in New Zealand. Sean Shelby told me he would re-sign me before that fight because I wanted to re-sign before it was out. He said, "Don't worry about the fight. Don't worry about the result. You'll get another contract." And he's fortunately a man of his word. It took me a little bit, but I said to him, "I just want to go out there and fight my fight. I don't want to worry about my job." And he reassured me not to. So I went out there and I fought my fight, and I still believe I was winning pretty convincingly up until we decided to put a little bit of pressure on, and we got caught with a shot. And Vince Pichel just slept me, man. Fucking put me out cold. But yeah, it is what it is. And then about like 4 months later, maybe they messaged me and said, "Hey, we fight Frank Camacho in Sydney." So I took that.
Okay.
That was my first fight on a new contract. So I was 2-2 in the UFC. Camacho missed weight by 5 pounds. I'm a fighter's fighter, man. I fucking took that, and I was like, "Yep, sweet, whatever, let's do it."
Do it.
Man, I don't ever regret anything. I don't regret that. I won a performance bonus that night for fight of the night. We
Yeah,
put on a
good.
barn burner. It was a lot of fun. I feel like I won. He definitely outworked me with volume. I thought I landed the better shots, but it is what it is. Again, I talk to him as well pretty regularly. He's a nice guy.
I think that's part of the professionalism, isn't it?
Yeah, we put it on for the fans. My only probably maybe regret is the quick turnaround after that fight. That fight really, really exhausted me. I had a massive adrenaline dump, and I was pretty fucked for a couple of weeks. It was a big fight, and it had an impact on me. But I made a quick turnaround, and I fought in Perth, and unfortunately, I lost another split decision, and I got cut off the back of that. And that was when I decided, like, I've been released from the UFC, and it was 2018. And I thought, well, I've got about 35 years left to work in corrections, or I can go and open a gym, and I can not waste what I've just put my blood, sweat, tears, and my wife through for the last 12 years. And so I decided I wanted to open a gym, and
here we
here we
are.
are.
So base is now 2 locations.
Yeah, so base in Brendale, we started in 300 squares. We're now in 700. And base in North Lakes, we started in 217 squares, and we're about to move in the next 6 months as well. So they're both going good. The first gym started in March 2019. In March 2021, we moved to the second location, not the second spot, but we moved down the road. And then in December 2022, we started in North Lakes. And yeah, by the end of this year, it'll be 2 years exactly. We're going to move to a bigger spot again. So
it's awesome.
Everything's going good. We got a lot of members. I think the journey is a reward. I cornered 2 guys in Coffs Harbour in 2012, and I loved it, man. I just wanted an opportunity to go down there and coach some guys. So Adrian and that didn't have to go. And I remember cornering him, thinking to myself, like, fucking I'm going to do this one
I
day.
really like this.
I really liked it from that moment. And so
you call yourself a fighter? You call yourself a coach or a fighter? Or a fighter's coach?
Probably a fighter's coach. Yeah. Yeah. I'm definitely not one or the other.
What makes coaching better than fighting?
Oh man, I wouldn't say it's better. I feel what my fighters feel. Like
what gives
I used
coaching a different feel to fighting?
Fuck, I feel exactly the same. I think that's what makes it great. Like,
so for you, it's a way.
Man, when my fighters are about to walk out, I'll stand out the back. I fucking dry reach like I used to.
Oh
before
fuck, I'm more nervous than them half the time.
And they're like, "You're all right, coach." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good, mate.
Yeah,
it's okay."
I'm fucking getting my steps up, walking in circles.
I am. If you've seen me cage side on any replays, I am in there. I'm in there with them. You know what I mean? I'm throwing the punches. I'm fucking bobbing and weaving on the outside, and
Is it a way for us as we get older to know that we still have something to offer?
For me, I don't think it's knowing that we have something to offer. I think we all believe that we have something to offer.
Mm.
I think it's for us is a way to feel value. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
I think I have something to offer. I believe I have something to offer. I believe that I keep up with the times. I'm not a dinosaur, you know what I mean? I'm not teaching what worked in 1990.
Mm.
I'm teaching what works in 2024. I watch the fights on the weekend. I hear Joe Rogan say, "Oh, he's splitting the cage real well." I'm like, "What the fuck is splitting the cage? Like, why is he using that
What do you even
terminology?"
mean?
You know what I mean? And then I'm like, "You mean just getting between the cage and his opponent?" You know, like then I start to break down what they're talking about. I pick up on words that they use that are different,
Yeah.
and then I feel like I keep up with MMA and I believe I have something to offer. But these guys, fighting used to be the way that I expressed myself. Now coaching is that,
Mm.
now these guys, these fighters or not even fighters, just everyone in the gym that when when
100%.
when the white belt that's about to get his blue says, "Coach, what about if I put my hand here?" I'm like, "Fuck, I'm your man." Right?
Mm.
That's the value in life for me now. And
Yeah.
that's these guys mean so much to me because they give me a purpose. Right.
And they
My
give
purpose
us
was fighting. I wake up, I eat what I ate, I go to the gym, I trained what I trained, I had lunch. That's all that was done because the purpose was fighting.
yeah.
The purpose now is to pass on knowledge. And so I don't think it's that give us an opportunity, coach. I think we believe we have something to offer, but the value in our day is delivering that.
Oh, and there's so many things, mate. It's building a legacy. It's passing on what everything we've learned. And again, that amount of knowledge. And like you said, everyone in the gym, like we've got, as you would have, we've got so many different people coming in for so many different reasons. For you to just, and you'll see them down the street and this is like 10 plus years later and they recall a conversation you had with them and it meant so much to them and you can't even remember it, but it's just for them, it turned their life around. And I think we just maybe, I don't know, not that we get arrogant, but we don't put into context how much value we have by just being us.
Man, I I always say to people, almost maybe it's a bit of a business thought process, but if you had a gym 500 meters down the road from me and I teach jiu-jitsu and you teach jiu-jitsu, what makes us different?
Hmm.
Yeah. And, what makes us different could be, well, in my opinion, is who you are as a person and the value you add to someone else's life.
100%.
Right. Now we're in a financial hard time at the moment where interest rates are going up and everyone's struggling. And of course, everyone went and bought fucking $2 million houses during COVID
Hmm.
and they're cutting costs. And the first thing to go is sport, but the last thing to go is your support network. The
Yeah.
last thing to go is your relationships. Anyone can teach jiu-jitsu, but the value that we add to these people's lives is what's
100%.
is what's important. And
No, that's great.
that really helps me get out of bed every day. Um,
That leads
you
on to
know,
question two.
I get an incredible amount of satisfaction out of making people smile. Um, I love teaching kids. Kids bring fucking so much joy to my life, man. I love teaching them. I'm a fiercely passionate and emotional coach at local jiu-jitsu comps. And if you're refereeing, you better understand the fucking rules because I'm coming for you because that kid's my kid and I'm there for them and they might pay me to be there, but I'm gonna change their life
Mm.
and they changed mine by me being able to do that. That's the value for me.
It's another chance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um, so with that, question two, I told you it was more than 7 minutes. Question
Yep.
two, three reasons you get out of bed every morning.
Sun's up, my son, and I get to do and teach jitsu.
That's pretty much spot on. Does your son, how old's your son?
He's 7,
He trains?
does jitsu. I could
Is
go
it
on for
something that if he
does
turned
MMA
around
as well.
tomorrow, and said, Dad, I don't want to do jiu-jitsu, I want to do this, would that be a thing?
Uh, you know, he'll always do jiu-jitsu. He won't have a choice.
Mhm.
But I might let him do it once a week. I'm not going to make him go every day.
Yeah.
I think
It's a rule I have with my daughters too.
he doesn't always have to do jiu-jitsu. He has to do martial arts. So he can come in on a Tuesday, Thursday, do our MMA circuits. They hit the bag, they hit some pads, they do some ground and pound, they do some agility drills. And it's just real like we do like an all-round MMA based circuit on a 4-week cycle where, they'll hit the double legs, single legs, they take each other down on the high jump mat, all that sort of stuff. So um he has to do martial arts each week. I don't think like I would never force it. And I've been very conscious of that since it started. He started at 22 months in his first gi and he wrestled with his dad and never made him do a class until he was 5 because he didn't want to. He just wanted to train with his dad. So I just trained with him. I made it fun for him. He went through a period last year where there was like 3 months he didn't want to train. I never made him train. I let him go home and do his homework.
Try having teenage daughters.
Yeah, I didn't force it. You know what I mean? My mentality was like, I could either say martial arts is good for you and you have to do it, or I could take the route where martial arts will be part of your life no matter whether you like it or not, because your dad owns businesses that are in the industry and you need to be a part of it. You have to be a part of it. You won't have a choice of it. So if I force it at 6 or 7 years old, what impact does that have later? So I've always said to him, you just do it when you want and don't do it if you don't want to. Some days he says, I want to train today. I take him to the gym and he says, Dad, I don't want to train today. I'm like, all right, no worries. But the discipline comes with that. You can't run around the gym. You can't play. You have to sit in the corner and do your homework.
Yeah.
You can watch your iPad afterwards, but no balls, no playing, no nothing until kids' class is over.
Yeah.
When all the kids are gone, you can play. And I think whether you're training or not, there's a bit of discipline to learn from that. And so
that's the main thing we're trying to give them.
But he wants to play football. He wants to play soccer. I'd love to. The only thing that disappoints me is that I coach every night and I can't take him to soccer practice. So I'll let him do whatever he wants to do. But, part of that payoff would be that he has to train martial arts once a week.
That's fair enough. 2 guilty pleasures that you have. Question number 3.
Fucking eat chocolate at 10 o'clock every night, eh? Every night I eat chocolate at 10 o'clock.
What's your go-to?
Fucking usually whatever my missus has in the back of the second drawer.
Oh, so
she doesn't want me to find it, and because I don't buy my own, I just eat whatever's there. So, but I'm a Kit Kat chunky kind of guy.
Okay.
And I don't mind the odd violet crumble. And then other guilty pleasure. I don't know. I don't mind a cheeky. I don't mind a cheeky punt at the casino on a bit of blackjack. I don't really promote. I'm not a gambling advocate or anything, but
just for shits.
I've been pretty open about if there's a jiu-jitsu comp in another city and it's got a casino, consider me in for flights and accommodation, because I don't mind a weekend away and a game of blackjack. So
we've all got to have a thing.
Yeah,
all got to have a thing. Question 4. One thing you bought that has literally made you happy every day after.
One thing I bought that's made me happy every day after. Man, without sounding like a complete suckhole, but when I first met my wife, she said to me, so I gave her my number and she said, if I call you, what will we do? And I said, I'll take you 10-pin bowling. It was the best game of bowling I've ever bought in my life. So I would go and say that. I think I changed my mind on about everything else, and I don't really buy much. I don't spend much money. So let's roll with that one.
I think that's fine. Would you say there's been times where she has, especially if you're getting hurt and all that sort of thing? I mean, she's been by your side, but do you reckon there's been any moments where she's gone, I don't know if this is what I fucking signed up for?
Yep, plenty. I've had the house packed up. It's we've been through it all. There's nothing we haven't experienced. 6 months before I went to war, she met me and she endured that. And then, I had surgeries. She's been through that. She's seen me get knocked out. One time I got knocked out fucking out cold. Like I don't even remember it.
Hard to watch.
And she sat in a seat and someone said to her, "Are you not worried about that?" She said, he does it to himself. He chooses the path and he knows the risks and he does
I
it to
like her.
himself. And, you know, I also told her if I ever get knocked out, don't go near the cage. I have coaches for a reason and we can talk about it afterwards. And so she's very respectful of that. And yeah, well, I think she's, well, I know that she's not an advocate of head trauma. So I would say that her having to endure my entire career, and potentially even now training as a 39, nearly 40-year-old with the young guys occasionally, you know, that's definitely something that she's had to put up with that she probably hasn't been happy about.
Yeah, they are good women. Yeah, mine would be very much the same. So question number 6. 4 things you cannot live without, animate or inanimate.
So I can't live without animate or inanimate, like as in items. Are we talking items
Yeah, it could
or
be like a
anything in life?
thing. I can't live without this, you know, this
Yeah,
object.
I
This, it
can't live.
goes with me everywhere.
I
There
can't
we
live
go.
without my phone.
What
I
do you
work from my phone. I do everything from my phone.
Now, so many people would say, "Oh my God, that's the devil's work there,"
I
but
live
you
on my phone.
understand it's needed.
This right here is the connection between me and my community. And you know, we talked about it earlier. Or it might have been before we started, but you know, people message you at 10 o'clock at night, 11
Yeah.
o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night. Um, Before I was a gym owner, I was very open about the fact that my DMs are always open. Um, Now that comes with people who are idiots, who want to insult you, but also it comes with people being like motivated, inspired, or somewhat empowered from something you say or do, or
Mm.
knowing they can reach out. Um, and so, you know, it comes with the business. In you know, we all got to sleep. So I'm not waking up fucking answering messages. I don't have notifications turned on anything except Facebook Messenger and or text messages. So it's on my time. But
Hmm.
I do check it. I check it before bed. I check it all the time. Um, and I can't live without my phone. Um, I also can't live without jiu-jitsu,
Hmm.
and I've been down that road, and that's in 2013 when I left the army and I was injured and I didn't train for a while. I realized that I can't live without jiu-jitsu in my life.
It's that age-old thing, isn't it? You don't know what you got till it's gone.
Yeah, yeah. I had
So
some mental
jujitsu
health issues
clearly,
from the military. And you know, there were things that I didn't need to deal with because I was dealing with them in, you know, in the gym.
yeah,
And that's just the way life was for me. And it wasn't until I didn't have it that I realized I had to deal with some issues.
yep.
And now I realize and I'm aware that I need to have martial arts in my life.
Um,
Um, I
the
think,
um the striking stuff for you is obvious. Clearly, jujitsu is the forerunner in your love of martial arts.
you know, I'm a striker at heart. You
But
know
you
what I
won't say
mean?
no to punching someone in the face.
Look, we have a run and joke in my gym. I'm the no time limit king. I don't care how old you are. You won't fucking tire me out. And unless you submit me,
You have
you
to
will
kill
quit
me to
before
beat
I
me.
do. You know, so unless you submit me, you will I will promise you you will quit before I do.
So you would have done great at
Um,
UFC 1.
yeah, yeah. We do laugh about it. It's something that only came about recently. I've got a member in my gym. He's a funny guy. I can see how he would upset the older generation of martial artists. He's very
Hmm.
vocal,
Hmm.
very confident.
Hmm.
Um, I don't find him to have an ego, but he's very confident. He's a professional fighter. He needs it. I don't find him to have an ego because he's a humble guy. He's built half my gym. You know, he's respectful. But he's loud.
Yeah.
He's loud. He's confident. He's he wasn't a martial artist, never was, played football. He's a little brother. He's fucking, they've given him such a hard time his whole life, but now he's found what he's good at, you know what I mean? And anyway, he picked his battle a few weeks ago. I said, "Will you do jiu-jitsu with me after class?" I said, he's a purple belt. I said, "Will you do one round with me?" He goes, "Yeah, no worries." So I do a round of jiu-jitsu with him after wrestling class on a Friday night. And the timer goes off. I said, "Oh, that's time." He goes, "I'll not stop until I submit you." I was like, fucking let's go. So 15 minutes later, I submitted him. Now, yeah, I'm a black belt, but I'm 39 years old. He's 26. He's bigger than me, stronger than me, fights at welterweight. I bought my time. I tired him out and I subbed him. And then that's where the no time limit king came from. So it's funny. We have a lot of laughs in the gym, a lot of laughs, and he's a good guy. I got a ton of time for him. I always joke about him being the son that I never had. But I've got a son now, but I always joke about him being the son that everyone wants kind of thing. And he's a good kid. He's funny to have around. But yeah, so jiu-jitsu, my phone, man, I, I don't have much outside of that,
Do you
if I'm
find
being
that you
honest.
so two things there. Number one, the phone. You were talking about my DMs always open. Like I said, we were talking about coaching or running a gym and the I guess the interpretation of what we are there for sometimes gets a bit blurred. Um, it's sometimes how we spoke about, like, I'm not on the clock now, but I'm getting these messages. Sometimes it's quite humbling and hard to absorb when you have somebody that maybe is in that time of need and they want somebody to message and speak to, and of all the people, they choose us. And I think, like how you said about your phone, that's something that, other people will say, why do you have your phone with you? Like you said, you have a community, you have a brotherhood and a sisterhood. To have those people have that much respect for you, even though they're paying you a fee to train, but something goes wrong or they need advice, they come to you. That sometimes is something we take a bit of time to adjust to. Would you agree?
Yep. Yeah, I would. I feel like, um, if people pay for a service, um, say they pay their 50, $60 a week to learn jiu-jitsu off you. And when the class is over, you turn the lights off and you go home and they go, "Oh, I sent you a message last night." You're like, "Mate, I don't respond to members." Like,
Mm,
I feel like you're nothing more than a martial arts coach.
mm,
You're nothing more than a coach. Like
mm,
how is a fighter to trust a guy that isn't there for them when they need it? I feel like I've told my coaches prior to fights, like, details about my life that I need to get off my chest. Like, it's I feel like there's part of that is your job. But for me, that's my point of difference. Right. I'm there for people. I could teach you how to choke people out. I could teach you how to armbar people. Hell, I'll even spar with you. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, when that's all said and done, if someone needs someone to lean on, I mean, I kind of feel like, and it's not for everyone, and you can
mm,
teach martial arts and go home and ignore everyone if you
mm.
want, but I don't think that's the best way to foster a community. I don't think it's the best way to foster an environment of support and whatnot. If your martial arts is better than the guy down the road, then you'll still build a good, successful gym, and that's where it'll stop. And you probably have a little bit less stress and time poor moments in your life. But at the end of the day, like, I feel like that's part of our job.
And I
Um,
think it's the line between that's when we go from being an instructor to a coach.
well, also, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with say a guy reaches out, as long as he's not fucking got something around his neck and he's about to jump from a bridge,
There's
right? But they're
always a
like,
line in the
they're
sand.
like, "Hey, coach, I'm not feeling good." You're like, "Are you all right?"
Mm,
Like, "Why you're not feeling good?" "Oh man, I'm just fucking not feeling good. Like, I'm struggling with jiu-jitsu." Well, there's also ways to deal with that in a way that you don't go into the conversation there and then. You're struggling with jiu-jitsu, so you've reached out to me. When you come into class tomorrow 10 minutes early, I'll have a chat to you before class and we'll address it
100%.
during class. And then it's good. Now, if someone's having suicidal thoughts and they're reaching out to you, probably need to address that at the time.
Yeah. And I think it's okay for us to say, I did this recently with someone, a couple of people, what you're going through is above my pay grade. So I think you need to go and see a real professional.
Yeah, that's another perfect answer. Or, one of the things that I'm really big on is networking.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe as a coach, we always say, well, I always say, good thing in business is to have a good lawyer, a good accountant, a good broker, right? Because we need to borrow money, manage money, and then chase money. That's who you've got. And maybe it's also anyone that owns a gym. It's also good to know a chippy, a tiler, an electrician, and a plumber.
It's one of the first things I say when people join. What do you do?
Yeah. So I've got everyone in my gym except a tiler, which pisses me off, but I do know a tiler
I'm chasing
that
a
owns another
builder
gym.
at the moment.
Hey, I've got a builder too. It's a young guy. He's a big mouth. I just talked about him, but he's just about to go into business. I gave him a little nudge. But yeah, it's it's part of our job and that's who we are. And I feel like if you can have the right network, then maybe, even if people do reach out, they're like, hey, I think I need to see someone. Like, hey man, go see this guy. This guy's good,
Because again, they trust your judgment, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, but I feel like there's nothing wrong with responding to a message. I think we're a decade or more past the don't contact me after 7 p.m. stuff. We're a decade or more past, not calling someone at a weird hour. So I feel like we're in a position these days where, just turn all your notifications off.
Yeah.
Put your phone on silent, put it in quiet mode, and fucking away you go. You know what I mean? And then if people reach out and you don't get back to them, well, depending on what they're reaching out for, hopefully they get some help if they really need it. But if they're reaching out and it's jiu-jitsu orientated and it's past 9 p.m., then maybe you're asleep. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with that. If they reach out and you do get back to them and it's something that can be addressed the next day, having some kind of sympathetic or empathetic response to it with a plan or a solution is probably the best way to ease their thoughts. Maybe they're struggling to sleep. Maybe someone fucking twisted their neck and then said to them after class, well, if you weren't rolling like such a dickhead, I wouldn't have done it to you. But that'll play on the mind of it. Someone that's doing jiu-jitsu, they'll be like, well, that guy had a go at me. I didn't even know what I was doing. Am I a dickhead? They can't sleep at night. And then, maybe that's the difference between them canceling or coming back tomorrow. I don't know. Like, there's so many variables or scenarios that potentially a simple response to, hey, mate, what's up? And then it's like, oh, I'm thinking about this. Oh, well, I've got a solution for that. Tomorrow, 10 minutes before class, we can address that. Or come see me in the morning. I'm teaching class. I'll talk to you while the class is going on. Just sit on the mat with me. Something as simple as that. Oh, yep, sweet. I'll see you in the morning at 5:30. Like, it's done. It took you all of 30 seconds to have that conversation.
And they're so much better to have face to face, aren't they?
Oh, always.
What the other thing I was going to say, from what I'm guessing and picking up on, you live life very busy, but you also live life quite simply. Like you're not a stuff sort of guy. Is that what you'd say?
Nah.
An experienced guy.
Yeah, I like life very simple. Very simple. I like to be around good people. I like to train each day. I'll work till, sun up, sun down if I have to and longer. But yeah, I don't need things. I'm happy to have a fucking black and white TV as long as it plays the NRL on it. And if free to air TV had 8 games of football a weekend, then I'd watch that too. Really, really my life, is like that summer lifestyle, that summer holidays. I like to sit down and watch test match cricket.
Yeah.
So I like to work all day, watch the test match, back in the day, it used to be work all night, watch a test match all day, and sleep on the land at the same time. And that was just my life. I don't need to go out. I don't need to party. I don't need to do anything. I don't need material items. Fuck, I don't need nothing.
External to the gym, are you quite a reclusive sort of person?
That's a big word, man.
No, right? Would you be, here's what I've been called. I think you're maybe similar, an introverted extrovert. So you can be an extrovert when you need to be, but you probably prefer sometimes, like how you said, you are quite happy to be by yourself. Do
Yeah,
you like those times?
I wouldn't say I'm introverted or extroverted. I definitely, um, I like to be around people,
Mhm.
but I have a small circle. I
Mm.
like to be around the same people all the time. I don't like changing things. I like everything to be the same. Like the same 6 friends for my whole life would be fine.
Mhm.
And I'd spend the same Sunday with those 6 people. I'd be fine.
Mhm.
Fortunately for me, I do have that little tiny circle of people that they clap for me. They enjoy my success. I
Yep.
enjoy theirs. They know when my fucking breathing pattern's out, and they check that I'm okay. And I only need 5 or 6 people like that, and the rest doesn't matter. I cover everything else up anyway. I like to just keep to myself. But if someone's like, "Hey, do you want to bring your son to this thing?" I'll go out for the weekend. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't say I'm either introverted or extroverted. Like I don't need to be at home to not be out. I don't have to be out and be flamboyant and loud. And I just do whatever I feel like's gonna make me happy that day.
When you work, do you find you're more productive at the gym or at home?
Oh, that's a interesting one.
Or
I
you
actually,
go through phases?
yeah, I do go through phases. I'm in the office today, but I haven't been in the office for a few weeks. It definitely, for me, my productivity comes from just starting work. So if I don't go, I lift weights at Worlds down the road. Another story, any gym owner or coach can understand. You can't lift weights in your own gym because you get distracted. Or you have a,
100%.
if
I'm
a
going
member
to the gym after this.
if a member walks in, they expect that you'll talk to them. That's fair
Yeah,
enough. They pay to be there. But
fucking impossible.
if I go down to World Gym and a member walks past me, like as in one of my members, they'll go, "Hey, coach," and keep walking. But then in
Mm.
my gym, they'll go, "Hey, coach, how was fucking Sunday?" And then obviously you have to have a conversation. I went through a phase where I'd get inquiries. People would walk in at lunchtime. "Hey man, I just want to ask some
Mm.
questions about martial arts." I'm pouring sweat mid workout. An hour later, I'm gotten cold and workout's done. So, you know, um, I think productivity wise can be different. Really for me, I've got a monitor, got a laptop. Once I start working, I get down the rabbit hole, and
Yeah.
6 hours later I come out of the office, and that's really where the productivity starts. For me, it's just I don't really like stats. I don't like computers. I just want to teach martial arts, um, have fun, and run a business. But unfortunately, part of that is fucking get on a computer, and
And
I
that's
don't
our
like that
problem.
part.
The
Um,
busier we get, the more we spend behind that screen.
yeah, you start out wanting to coach, and then that's how you start your business, and then you go from that to having to manage the business, and then you go from managing the business to back on the mats, and then you get busier again, and all of a sudden you got coaches, so they're doing the coaching, and then you're back on the. It's a constant cycle, and the only way to actually just stay coaching is to have like 50 members.
That's
If you
it.
got 50 members, you only got 50 questions to answer. You only got 50 messages that possibly come through. You've only got 50 memberships that can possibly bounce, and you might have one payment bounce a week. And like the bigger the gym, the bigger the problems.
Oh, more members,
And
more members, more problems.
and obviously that forces you onto a computer a little bit more, and there's some planning behind that and everything. So yeah, it's but productivity wise, I just need to start. When I start, I get it. I mean, I'm into it.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Number 7. If you were not doing what you're doing in life right now, what would have been option number 2?
Oh man, well, I mean, I probably covered it earlier.
You
Like,
probably got a few option number twos, really.
it depends on how far back you go, right? But let's just go back to the last change, which is the UFC releasing me. You know, the question was, so I'm 35. I got to work till I'm 65. So I've got 30 years in corrections, or I've got to start my own gym and build my own business. If I wasn't doing what I do now, look, being a prison officer pays pretty good money, man. I'm not gonna lie. Like those guys put up with a bunch of shit, right? Without going into the stories, I've fucking had it all, and like it's not worth the money. But in terms of getting money for doing a job, they get paid pretty good.
It's that
Now,
working to live, isn't it?
yeah, so they work to live. So they work 3 days a week in Queensland, or 3.3 days a week, 13 days a month, for the most part, on a 12-hour rotational roster. Um, you know, most of them have got golf carts and they're playing golf on the weekends. They're playing golf during the week. The overtime's worth it, $400-500 a day. Most of them get into that right where they're doing overtime and they're making good money. Look, at the end of the day, if I wasn't doing what I'm doing right now, based on the last change or the last, fork in the road that I was at, I would probably still be working in the jail. Except I never did overtime because I was chasing a career in fighting. I'd probably be deep in overtime and trying to make as much money as possible these days. And really that's probably what I'd be doing right now if my choice was different.
When you look back on, obviously you made the right decision. A lot of people would attest to that. But when you look back now, was there a few times earlier on when you started to make that jump into a gym, you go, fuck, maybe I've bitten off more than I could chew here?
No.
Good.
No, never looked back.
You just got to make this is going to work.
Man, I got the most supportive members. I do think, I'm not blowing my own trumpet or anything, but like, I do think the community that we were able to foster early on and the vibe that we got
that's your
together.
foundation.
And, I was still actively fighting when I opened a gym in Ryzen. So, the Saturdays with my members sitting around watching me spar with other guys and, it just really built a good vibe. And, I still remember when COVID happened, it was 2 days before our gym's first birthday. And,
when you were, when you were
I was
talking
working a
about
night
that,
shift.
I
I was
was
still
like,
casual at the jail. I was still casual at the jail. I was working night shift on a Sunday night, and there was a Monday morning class. I remember 8 p.m. I was watching the news, and they closed everything down. I went in, man, and I heard this. This is not my advice. I have heard this before, but if there's one piece of advice I can give anyone, and that's, transparency and vulnerability builds
100%.
trust. And so I went in and, I'd worked essentially my whole life. We sold our house to open a gym. I opened it without debt. I paid cash to open it. Fortunately, fast forward 12 months time, when COVID came around, it was really just rent was our overhead. And I had a very good lawyer who gave me some great advice. And I can go into that later. Or I can go into that another time, whatever. But that was our biggest hurdle was how do we pay rent. And I finished my night shift that night. I drove straight to the gym. I stood there in front of the class, and I'm not going to lie, I was fucking in tears. I thought my life was crashing down. I thought everything I worked for was gone. We sold our house. We invested our money in this business.
Yep.
And the government was just fucking packed it up and took it away from me. So, I think for anyone in Australia, there was a lot of unknowns at that time. And it would be unreasonable for people to expect you not to feel like that. And I believe that that's who I am, and that's who I am, and that's how I was feeling, and I didn't hide that from my members. I'm not some kind of fucking hero that can deal with things different to anyone else. So, I put myself out there that morning, and I let them know that I was going to do whatever I had to do to open the doors again, and so I just have the great members and great people, and I've not once ever looked back and gone, ooh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Not once.
No. And I think considering because base has not been open, terribly long, you're under 10 years.
5 years last month.
The amount of community and the amount of, well, 2 locations, but just, I guess I judge people on reputation more than, you might have 1,000 members and just be an asshole. But from what I can see, mate, the reputation that you have and the reputation you're developing, that's, the community is what portrays you. And as you would know, especially from the military and whatever, it all flows downhill. If the head coach is a dickhead, then your students are going to be dickheads. If you are setting the pace, setting the example, influence over authority, you will sort of, like you said, you'll have these. And I always have the saying with our gym, I say, assholes don't last long here. It's not that we beat them up. They just don't fit in. We just don't
Yeah, I
give them
get that a lot.
something. We just don't fuel their ego and they leave, and that's okay.
Yeah, we get that a lot. Even guys that come in too hot and heavy,
Yeah.
want to spar heavy. They're like, as a coach, you're like, hey man, back it off. Like, I don't like sparring like that. We don't do that here.
Mm.
If they're a little hot headed and heavy, they'll either fit in and go, oh fuck, these guys actually do train better and I can relax here, or they'll just be a dickhead and go somewhere else and be a dickhead.
And that's
And
fine.
we've had it, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's I've never regretted opening the gym. I've never once thought, besides COVID, which I'm sure every business in Queensland did.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure what's going on here. I'm not sure if I should have done this or maybe I should have kept a job. Well, I
Well, in
did
that
keep a
early
job. I
stage,
worked
it
Saturday
was
and
day to
Sunday
day.
nights. I worked Saturday and Sunday nights at the jail as a casual for the first 2 years I was in business.
Mm.
I would finish at lunchtime on Saturday, lock the gym up, mop the mats, clean the gym, top to bottom, go home, answer the emails, sleep for 1 hour, get in my car, drive to the jail and work a 12-hour shift. I would sleep all day Sunday. I would work Sunday night if there was a shift there. And then on Monday, I'd go straight from there at 5 o'clock to the gym. I'd coach a 6 till 7 class and I'd go home and sleep till the afternoon. And I did that for a year. Whenever I didn't have a fight coming up. And then I still had that job when COVID hit. So I was fortunate. I was a required worker or whatever they called it. Essential worker. So I could go and work casual shifts. And I did a few shifts and thought, fuck this. So I renovated my house during lockdown. And yeah, it's I think I played it smart in the setup, and then really just who we are and why we've grown so big is like you said, it comes from the top, and I feel like we foster a great community and a good vibe, and I'm here for my members, and I've stood there in front of jiu-jitsu classes with 60 people in before, and I tell people, I'm like, we might mean something to them, but they mean something to us because without each other, we're nothing, and that might sound a bit cliche, but like. I chose to coach martial arts for the rest of my life. Those guys are fucking everything to me. Without them, I'm not here.
We're nothing without our members. It's the sum of all the moving parts. Number 8. Well, there's a few here as well. One time you've backed yourself when everything was saying to just give up.
Yeah, man. I was 10-8 in MMA, 10 wins, 8 losses. I had a shitty record. Everyone was very aware that you need to win, at least 70% of your fights to have any kind of opportunity, and you need to ride a win streak. Signed with Cage Warriors on the worst fucking deal ever. I paid my own flights. I didn't get paid as much in purse to fly myself. I invested in myself. I rolled the dice. And I lost 3 decisions in a row. I had a good contract. I had a manager at the time who got me a contract. If I had won my first 2 fights with them, I would have fought for their lightweight title. That was in my contract at the start. Little did I know, had I won my first fight, they would have started paying for my flights. They just wanted me to get there and test me because I'm from Australia and I have no value to them. But my manager is friends with the promoter, and I was able to get an opportunity. It didn't work out the way I wanted to work it out, but I backed myself. Conor McGregor was the champ, and it looked like a fucking good pathway for me and a lot of guys for signing with the UFC. You could say I drank the Kool-Aid, and I felt like if I was with Cage Warriors, the UFC would look at me more. Turns out that wasn't the case. It probably would have helped had I had their belt, but it didn't matter who I was fighting for as long as I was winning.
Yeah.
And I lost a few fights, and I was 10-8. And I remember saying to my wife, "If I lose again, I'm done. I'll pull the trigger. I'll pull the pin. It's okay."
Mm.
And she was like, "Oh, don't put that on me. Like, you do you." And I said, "No, no, no. I'm okay with it. I'm gonna roll the dice on myself here." Um, and I did, man. I won 5 straight, 4 by stoppage, and I think what that did was I always wanted to be in the UFC, and I probably focused on the end goal more than the current goal, and
Yeah.
and didn't give each fight the credit it deserved. And feel like backing myself at that point in time was what I needed, um,
Mm.
and to put myself in a position where if I lose, I need to work and look after my family. I always worked anyway. I'm not the guy that didn't work to chase a career, but I needed to focus on working and buying a house and building a family. And fortunately for me, by forcing myself into a position where I had to focus on just that fight, so I didn't lose each time.
Yep.
I went on a bit of a tear, and I put a little bit more, I guess, whatever I had in the tank left into it, and the rest is history.
Do you I'm trying to think of the words. So 39 and you're not competing, but you're sort of still doing bits and pieces, yeah?
I will say that I will never retire, and if opportunity presents, I will fight again.
That's the question I was trying to word.
I will never retire. I believe that opportunities are there for a reason. You will not see me as an ex-UFC fighter fight in Australia on the local scene for a local promotion against a local up-and-coming young athlete ever again.
Mm-hmm.
But should opportunity present itself where I think that it's good, it makes sense, I'll take that.
Over till it's
Um,
over.
Ryzen has 40, 50-year-olds fighting on their show all the time. They don't really have a welterweight division. I can't make lightweight anymore. It doesn't take a genius to work out the older you get. The more weight cuts you do, but definitely the older you get, the thicker you get, the bigger you get.
Mm.
And the more your body slows down a little bit. Trying to cut to 70 kilos these days would actually it would probably go close to killing me.
Oh God.
I used to cut from like 88 kilos down, and even now, if I was the same, I still wouldn't be able to get there. Like my body wouldn't do what it used to do. But
No.
if Ryzen had a few welterweight fights with a couple other 40-year-olds, they got some guys there now, then yeah, I'd look at it. I'd fight again. My missus would probably still feel the same as she did for the last 15 years, but same as what I did for the last 15 years, I'll just do it and I can live with the consequences when I go home. So
Opportunity is an opportunity.
I'll never retire. I'm a competitor. I like it. I feel like I've built a good gym. I could probably train with my team these days and not have to run around the countryside getting ready. But I've got enough guys. I know how to fight, man. I can fight tomorrow. I can fight today. Or fuck it, I'll fight in 10 minutes if there's someone downstairs that wants to fight. Like that's who I am. I fought before I was a fighter. I fought before I trained in a gym. It's, I'm an AJ. That's what we do. We fight with each other. We fight together. We fight everyone. We're fucking peanuts. That's
You
why
were
you don't have
you
to
were
be
the
a genius
guys
to
on
be an infantry soldier.
you were the guys on Anzac Day at the Victory Hotel beer garden. We used to go, fuck, here we go again.
It's just if you got a shaved head in Townsville, everyone wants to punch on with you. So it's like that's just the way it goes.
It is what it is. Number 9, 3 pieces of advice to people that are finding reasons to not back themselves, to instead back themselves.
3 pieces of advice. I would say, okay, I'm reading a book at the moment called Choose Your Enemies Wisely.
Okay.
Okay. It's a business book. So, if you have a reason, like if you're doubting yourself for doing something, first of all, you need a reason, right? Like why are you doing it? If there's no reason to do it, you won't do it, right? So what's the purpose of doing something? What's your what's your motivation? You know, everyone likes the word motivation these days. Choose your enemies wisely. You know, maybe someone told you couldn't do it. Fuck that. Prove them wrong. You know what I mean? So then you've got a motive. You know, don't call it motivation. Call it a motive, right? You've got a reason. You've got a purpose, and then sorry, can you read the question out again, just so I can make sure I word it properly?
3 pieces of advice to people that are finding reasons to back themselves, that are struggling. Well, to find
Struggling
reasons
to back themselves. Find a
they need to back
purpose.
themselves.
Find a purpose.
Yep.
Find a motive.
Yep.
Okay, emotional motive, not an emotional drain.
Okay.
So a purpose, an emotional motive, and then you know, maybe it's not always a bad idea to have like a a reason for it. So like if I was struggling to back myself to fight, you know, the purpose of fighting might be to test myself. My emotional motive might be because someone said to me, you can't win that fight.
Yeah.
But it's always nice to have a reason why you want to fight. Right. So like I want to open a gym. You know, why do you want to do jiu-jitsu? I'm fucking scared to do jiu-jitsu. I'm finding every reason not to. Well, maybe someone said to you, you can't compete in a jiu-jitsu comp. You're like, oh, fucking watch this, right?
Yeah.
That's your emotional motive. Your purpose for it might be you were bullied, you know, and your reason for doing it might be when I get to black belt, I'm going to open my own gym because I want to have my own business.
Yeah.
You know, so find a reason, find a purpose, and then choose your enemies wisely is probably one of the best books I've ever read. I actually don't read books. I get about 2 paragraphs or 2 chapters in, and I'm like, fuck that. I'm halfway through this one. It has taken me a little while, but I'm doing it in 10, 15 minute spots so as I can absorb the information.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very good book, and probably one of the best bits I took out of it about, you know, the choose your enemies wisely thing is again, it's a business book, but it's about, you know, if someone says, you know, you're fucking fat and you'll amount to nothing, what do? Right? You're like, I'm gonna prove that bastard wrong.
Yep.
You go and get a meal plan, you start training, and then all of a sudden you've lost 40 kilos and you're like, yeah, fuck you. But now you need a new enemy. Right.
That's
So
right.
and so you constantly got to readjust. But if someone's like you know, attacked you and they're they're not motivating you by being your enemy, they're actually draining you because you think about it all the time. That's not a good enemy. That's not what you're looking for. So, you know, it could just be someone says, I don't think you can win this jiu-jitsu comp. You know what I mean? Not someone that's bullied you. Then maybe that's your motive. So find a motive, find a purpose for it, and then have a reason for it, like at the end of it.
Okay. Question 10. A quote to live by.
Well, I mean, I probably shared a few of them throughout this, didn't I?
Yeah.
Really, based on the certain circumstances. Um, treat people how you wish to be treated.
Good.
Been around for fucking as long as I have. No one really gives it the weight that it deserves, but you know, if you want people to give you time, give them time. If you want people to give you support, give them support. If you want people to be rude to you, be rude to them. You know,
So one
if
thing
you
that
want people to be there when you need them to be there, then fucking be there for them.
one thing that pops into my head, and obviously another subject that we haven't spoken about, is you do run a very successful fight promotion called Beatdown. And we as a gym have been on once and we plan to be on again. And this is a reignited venture for us. We've had MMA fighters before, but sort of stepped away for a bit and coming back. One thing, and I, again, not to piss in your pocket, but one thing that I have liked, because as you would know, the industry can have its share of idiots, for want of a better word. I have really appreciated the way that you have been so professional and welcoming in that environment, which obviously makes us want to make sure we provide the best we can for you. Do you find sometimes that, you know, if you're that nice sort of person, because you run a very professional show, you run a very tight ship in everything. Is there times where, like you said, if people aren't treating you the way that you want to be treated, or you have some guy that, you know, maybe a gym you're working with or a fighter you're working with, that just you're not, like you're giving everything but not getting anything back, you're not afraid to
Yeah,
say,
man.
I think we're done here?
I just don't talk to you again. If you don't give me the time, I won't give you the time. But at the end of the day, you know, I, I've had this conversation a few times. I started promoting to help someone.
Mm.
I'd always thought about it, but I had an opportunity, and I took that opportunity, and I ran a show, and I seen what I felt was a hole in the market in North Brisbane.
Oh, massive.
There's never any shows here. We fucking drive to the South Side for them or the Gold Coast or whatever. I just felt like there was a hole in the market. But more importantly, I feel like I have something to offer to fighters. Um, Without fans, there's no fight show. But I feel like, I don't want one-sided fights. I do my best to not do that. Look, you could say that the Junior Tougher fight was one-sided, but find me someone who was interested in fighting him, and I'd make a better fight. You
Good
know what I mean?
luck.
Like sometimes it's not like, you know, it's not like I had like out of 16 fights, I had something like 12 decisions in the last fight
Mm.
show. Like I'm not matching fights either sided um to favor someone. Even my own guys, like last year, plenty of people would be happy to say, "Oh, you look after your own guys." My own guys went fucking 2 wins, 6 losses in March
Mm.
last year.
Mm.
Some would say I should have found them easier fights because it's my own show. At the end of the day, I want to work with people who are easy to work with. I'm not hard to work with. I know what the industry's worth. I'm not going to be trying to scrounge $100 out of your purse. For me, it's like if you've had this many fights, probably on any show you get paid this. Here, I'll give that to you. Then they go, oh, yeah, okay. I'm like, cool. That's easy, right? If I'm like, hey, man, like, do you want to fight on the show? They go, yeah, I do. And I go, okay, cool. Here's an opponent. Nah, not the fight I'm looking for. Oh, what about this one? What's the purse? I'll give you $1,500. No, I want 2.5. Sorry, man. The local shows don't have that for like every fighter. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like main events, maybe, but like,
We've been through
and
this
then
before.
you just go through all this stuff and it's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. At the end of the day, business needs to make money to make sense. I'm not looking to profit off a fight show. I just want fighters to have good opportunities and I want to do the right thing by them.
Yeah.
And in return, I only expect that. That's it. So, like at the start of my show, which obviously you would have experienced last time, maybe were you at the weigh-ins?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do a brief at the weigh-ins. We don't do a rules meeting because fuck them, that is boring, and the main event doesn't need to be there at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We send the rules out with the contracts. Every fighter signs a contract. Every fighter has the rules. Um,
That's it.
We don't do C class fights. We only do B and A. So everyone sort of knows what they're getting into. Any questions they can ask a referee beforehand. But we do a brief at the weigh-ins and we say, guys, I run a good show. I run a tight ship. We have a lot of fights. We have a time frame. Be here at this time. Your fight will be on at this time. You'll be able to watch the rest of the show.
Mm.
That's literally as simple as it is.
Mm.
If you turn up on time, I'll give you a good experience as a fighter. Um, so I'm easy to deal with, and I just want to deal with people who are also like that. I get that with some fights there's complex issues, like particularly if you're dealing with internationals and stuff. Guys may be close to the UFC and stuff like that. There's a little bit more to deal with, but for the most part, for 75, 80% of your card, it's like, hey, do you want this fight? Yeah, I do. Okay, cool. I'll pay you this much. Yep, no worries.
Let's go. Mm.
That's, I send them a contract within half an hour. Sign your contract. I'll book your
Oh,
flights and
yeah.
accommodation. Like super simple. And so yeah, for me, with the fight show is one thing, it's professional and I run a tight ship because from a production point of view, I've been part of big events. We don't have big event budget. We're a local show, but there's lots you can do to make sure that it comes across like that.
Yeah.
Be it on the stream or an experience for fighters and fans, it should just be seamless.
It was funny when my guys walked into their to the last one, because for them, both of them was their first real sort of fight at that level, and they were both like, "Holy shit! Like this is full on." And I said, "Yeah, this is the real deal, boys."
And I had a guy fly from Sydney to support one of the fighters, and he brought his son up, and he was like, "Man, I didn't know, I didn't know it was sold out. I didn't even know it was in this. I thought it was at a pub." And he just thought it was like a local, like shit MMA show, like I don't like just a low production. And so we're over 18s, unless you're an athlete. We're over 18 venue, and that's not our choice. That's just the venue. We sell out every show. But yeah, it was just about, I'm easy to deal with. I'm a professional kind of guy. I don't make things complicated. I'm not hard to get along with. And if you return that, then we'll just do business together.
We go.
You if you don't return that, then like there's been one athlete I offered a fight that he wanted, and he wanted $3,500. I said, man, I can't do that. He's like, I don't want the fight anywhere but here. And I can't say where. And I was like, all right, no worries. And he's like, but I'll fight on your show, but I want this. I'm like, hey, mate, listen, you're an away guy. You'll sell no tickets. You'll cost me flights and accommodation. I'm not paying you $3,500 to fight once. Like, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
Right. If it makes money, it makes sense. But, for me, it's like any other business. I'm not worried about making 100 grand off a show. I'm worried about not losing 100 grand off a show.
Yeah.
Right. If I make 5, that's fine. I also don't pay much tax. So everyone's happy. Right. But more importantly, did the fighters and the fans feel like they had a seamless professional experience? If that's what they felt like, then I did my job, and so did they.
There's a reason they keep selling out.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, mate, it's good to see that, like you said, because in any industry, there's more than our share of sharks and charlatans and all the rest of it. But it's good to see that we still have this ability for young kids in Brisbane to have that chance to just see if this is something that I want to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's but yeah. It's just I feel like, you know, sharks or whatever we refer to them as is, at the end of the day, they are focused on business and profit margins. And they're entitled to that, the same as the local jiu-jitsu coach that's focused on numbers in and closing the doors and going home to their family and not building a community, right? But and that might be good for business short term, maybe it's good for business long term. But for me, it's just not about that, like
No.
I'm living a great life. I don't, I've got a beautiful family, I've got a beautiful home, I've got, I've invested. Like it's just not about it. It's just about running a good, high quality show that people enjoy the experience of. And really, and I don't pay shit money. I pay like what I would consider industry standard. Obviously I've fought in the industry. I understand the industry. I know what it's like from a fan and a fighter's perspective. And I've got guys that have fought on other shows. And so I just I don't have the money that some other shows have, but I won't fucking screw you either. So
good to know. Good to know, because we hope to be back there again. Damien Brown, that's been a really good chat. And I think you said it off air, peeling the onion back. It got peeled back well and truly. And I'll give an inside thing, listeners. We had to split this in two because we'd allocated time. Then Damien had to go teach PT, and then we had to come back and finish it off. So that's good, and I appreciate you doing that, mate. Because as we said also off air, you seem to be a guy that is very conscious of his time. So Damien, thank you very much for your time.
No worries, man. Thanks for having me on. I hope people get something out of it, and you know, they manage to find themselves an enemy that motivates them and doesn't drain them. And
100%.
yeah, I definitely you know, treat people how you want to be treated, and life will take care of you, take care of itself.
That is so, so true. So for those who want to look into Damien a little bit more, Base Training Centre, which is on the north side of Brisbane. And then there is also, I'd call it his side gig, but it's a full gig, Beatdown Promotions, which is having another show in July of this year.
There's a show in 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah, you've got the Townsville show.
Yeah, our cage went up there last night.
Oh,
Shipped
God.
it up there last night. So May 11 in Townsville, at Townsville Entertainment Centre. It's going to be a hell of a night. Hopefully, Townsville's a last minute crowd, but we sold good numbers already. So I'm looking forward to being up there in Townsville and having a stacked 14 fight card. But we'll be back July 13 in Brisbane.
Very excited. Very excited. So guys, look him up. And in regards to the podcast, give it a like, a share, and a follow. Check out previous episodes. And as I said, there's a lot of famous people now that you may never know until you listen to this. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Damien. And we will see you guys all soon.